are listening to Inside Voices on WNHHLP 103.5 FM.
Good morning, and welcome to Inside Circle. My name is Georgia Goburn. I am the co-founder of Circle and the director of Hope for New Haven. I have two wonderful women with me here today, and I have to say, I always have I think I keep very good company with the women that I've been bringing on the show. And I am excited to welcome back Francesca Velasquez. She is a director of several Play to Learns. How many centers do you have now,
Three.
Francesca? Three centers. And Francesca was a previous guest when we highlighted Play to Learn last year. And I'm welcoming Mindy Gold. She is the board chair of Capital Child Development Center in Hartford. And we are going to give you some space to talk a little bit about yourself, but we're just going to introduce the audience to the conversation today. And typically I'll have a little bit of a history lesson, but we have so much packed into this conversation today. So I'm just going to put that on pause for right now. But we are here to talk about an exciting event, and it's actually pretty historic, and we do kind of want to delve a little bit into that. We are going to talk about the Morning Without Childcare rallies that are scheduled to occur next week. I cannot even believe it is here already. Next week, May 7th. And these are rallies that are going to be happening across the state to highlight the need for better investments in our early care and education system. So before we jump into the conversation, I'm just going to give you all an opportunity to tell our audience about yourself, who you are and what you do. And then we're going to jump into the conversation. Mindy, you are our first timer here, so I'm going to let you go first.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Georgia. So I'm Mindy Gold. I am the board chair of Capital Child Development Center in Hartford. We're in Frog Hollow, right across from the Capitol. I am the mother of two young children. They just turned 4 and 1 last week. Their birthdays are like
You're in the heart of everything, right?
So I am in the thick of it. And yeah, my work sort of focuses on advocacy, nonprofit leadership, community engagement, and really all forms of human-centered design. So sometimes that's working with digital clients, sometimes that's working with organizations on internal processes, just sort of all over the map. But it was really through my own children and experiencing childcare as a parent that I became an advocate.
Oh, well, welcome, Mindy. It's really great to have your voice here today. And Francesca.
So I am Francesca Velasquez, based in Stamford, Connecticut. I'm a mom of 4. I'm a grandma, first of all, and I am a childcare owner of multiple centers. And now I think I could call myself an advocate.
Yes, you can.
Right?
Of course you
I do that this
can.
year? Before I was like in training. I think I've gotten better, right, with the time.
You
I
are
think,
doing a lot, Francesca.
yeah, like I think, yeah, I officially call myself a child care advocate this year, right? 2025. And most of all, I've been spending a lot of time lately fighting to make sure that families and educators have a voice at the table, or if it's not at the table that we create.
Yeah. Well, and that's pretty much what this childcare, Morning Without Childcare is about, is basically lifting up and elevating the voices of providers, parents across the state, and to make sure that they have a place at the table. And actually, we created this table. So I don't know if anyone wants to kind of give an overview to the audience about what the Morning Without Childcare rallies are about.
Francesca, do you want to start?
Okay, you want me to go? Yeah.
Sorry.
So this is our fourth event. So it's been happening for 4 years, being consistent. I remember being invited to the first one. I think it was the first, yes, it was the first one, and as a speaker, right? And I remember that we were asking for that what was it, 7 million?
Seven, was it 700 million?
Yeah, remember? And that was our thing, right? And a lot of it is the morning wild childcare. And like you said, different centers they close the morning, right? In Stanford, I know that I close my center from 8:30 to 12. Mindy's doing it in the afternoon. So it's become something different for everyone, and it looks different, but still we are still advocating, we're still asking for equitable, what's the word? Equitable childcare across the board, and giving parents the opportunity to speak, giving educators. And I think that one thing that happens with these rallies is that it makes the educators feel appreciated and seen. The momentum it's incredible, right? So like last year was my first time being a captain, and I kind of did it right, wanted to do it. And this year I wanted to have something that happened after the rally, just because the momentum was so good that I didn't want it to die down. So I'm having like an after party after the rally, so that, kind of like appreciating them coming out and taking the time out to speak, and being out there, and like, so it's more to get our word across, of what we need. And this year, I'm so proud of the legislators, and just that a lot of our bills are still alive, right? And hoping that they do the right thing and we don't have to come back again next year. But if we do, we'll come back. But I think that persistence and consistency and that determination has gotten us where we are today.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Mindy, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with everything Francesca said. We started 4 years ago. There were 8 rallies, I think, the first year, and now we're at 15. So it's certainly grown. And also, I like to say that as a, when you're doing community organizing and when you're doing advocacy, you do actions, right? And like this as a political action was almost too successful, I like to say, right? Because what we wanted to do with these rallies is show the impact of what happens when childcare shuts down. If there was no childcare, everything comes to a screeching halt. And that's the point of closing for the morning to come out and do these rallies. Well, for some centers, for some communities, it's truly not even possible, right? Like the idea of closing is devastating to the families that they serve, to the workers, the educators. And so like in Hartford, we do our rally at 5:30 after work, and our center is not actually closing. We serve a lot of legislative families and state families who are, working hard every day, as they are in Stanford and across the state. But I think it just goes to show that we were like, let's show everyone what happens when we close for a morning. And a lot of people were like, oh, wait, that's too effective. And so I think that's just like a really good way to sum up what these rallies do, beyond just creating community, like Francesca said, between families, providers, and the educators, the workforce. There aren't a ton of spaces where all of those 3 stakeholders come together and like Francesca said, really show appreciation for each other. And this is a really special place to do that. And again, for educators to feel appreciated and know that people are speaking on their behalf. They're coming out and speaking up and advocating for them. And that's the best way to show appreciation.
Do you guys know the history around why there are so many different approaches to the shutdown?
To the rallies? I mean, I think it really is just every community responded differently. So like in Hartford, we want the legislators, we'll be at the Capitol, and we want the legislators to be able to come out of the building and speak to the audience, and will be doing some lobbying during the day. And so it just so happened that, the way we could make it work was to be in the after work hours. And so I think each community is approaching it differently. I think there's some that are doing sort of like a lunchtime rally, and then there's some, that are doing the morning.
So I want to share with the audience because I take a point of pride in my role in creating the morning
Yes.
without childcare, because this action actually came out. And when I say it's historic, I'm going to share with you that we really started something special. This came out right after the pandemic. And you guys, Mindy, was your center open during the pandemic? Were you still serving legislators?
We closed for several months.
Right. So our center remained open. Francesca, was your center open during
We closed too.
close as well? So Hope Child Development Center stayed open. We're in the heart of the Yale, and we serve a lot of families that are first responders, and kept our center open for the entire time. And during that time, and Francesca, this is how our paths crossed.
Yes.
Childcare industry came together. We organized, we were talking. The governor came, visited with us. We were heralded as heroes and all of those things. And sadly, the governor, right after all of this work, with including the childcare industry as a part of the emergency response, this was right going into a budget year. The governor wrote a budget that had no money for childcare. And I was furious because I understood the sacrifice my staff made to stay open and to serve families who were first responders, those grocery workers, those bankers. Sometimes we talk about the doctors, but we oftentimes didn't talk about those other those essential workers like the bankers and the grocery workers who kept our money flowing and kept our food going. And so I was really very upset, and I sent an email urging the community to basically do a strike for the day. And there was a lot of anxiety about that call, but people were really very frustrated as well. And it was a push and a pull, and there were lots of people who were standing with me to say, yes, let's shut down, because again, as you said, Mindy and Francesca, we need people to understand if we weren't available, that nothing will be able to function. And for the first time, the governor recognized this. This is why the Office of Early Childhood Education was included in the state's emergency responses. There were childcare centers that were open specifically to serve hospital workers. And we were engaged to do that work, but we went to our parents, and our parents said, no, we really want to focus on serving our families. So we did. But there were lots of childcare centers that were asked to participate in the state response to address the childcare issue. And when we called for a full day shutdown, many centers responded. Many communities said, we really don't want to do this. We don't want to hurt parents. We don't want to hurt families. And so the compromise was every single community was going to do things the way that was a good fit for their community. And so we got everybody to come on board to craft what was going to work for their community. And we went from an all-day shutdown to the big compromise was a morning without childcare. And so we agreed that for the morning, we would shut down part of the day, and then we would basically, continue to serve families. But other communities like Hartford, again, did something a little bit different because, again, Hartford is also at the seat of power, where you're right across from the legislative office building and the Capitol and the governmental office. And so Hartford was always different. Stanford, I think you guys are doing the mornings.
Yes, we're doing it 8:30. I have 8:30 to 12, but some centers do it for different times in the morning, like 8:30 to 11 or 8:30 to 10. So, yeah.
Right. So that's how, for the audience and for you guys to know how this thing started and how it evolved. And also, we did this in we used to do this in March. The
Mm.
rally was used to be in March, and it was really very cold. But because we were so successful, going back to Mindy's point, the first year rally was so successful. We went from $0 in the budget
Mhm.
to, I think it was close to $150 million
Yeah.
that we eventually were able to secure for childcare. And my numbers could be off a bit, but definitely it was over $100 million. And this garnered national attention. And because we were so successful in moving from zero to over $100 million in the budget, it sparked a national movement. And so now we have national Morning Without Childcare because the country saw what Connecticut did and they were like, let's follow under Connecticut. Let's follow what Connecticut did. So I do want to give the audience that it's really important to us and it's really big for us, but this actually sparked a national movement. And that national movement is actually occurring in May. And this,
Mhm.
I think we kind of shifted. So do you know the dates for the National Day Without Childcare?
I think it's the following week.
The following week, yeah.
Mhm.
So I have to say, I'm so proud of the work that we did. I'm so proud of the work that you guys are doing. And you kind of hinted at, why you all got involved in this work. But I think we know what the stakes are as people who are advocates. And Francesca, we can count you now as a
Thank
part
you.
of that. But I think it bears repeating what the stakes are here. So could you guys talk about why we have to do this? And even if we are successful again in this legislative session, why do we think that we have to continue to have this conversation?
Yeah, well, I also just want to thank you, Georgia, for the role that you've played historically in this movement and in childcare advocacy at large. Our paths have, well, I guess only digitally really crossed paths because I heard you testify this year at a public hearing, and your testimony was one of the most moving things I've heard. And your passion just, I mean, radiates from within you. And so I love like remembering that really what this is a labor strike. Like
Yeah,
that's so important to remember because that is extremely powerful as a tool. And yeah, thank you for that history lesson too.
thank you for reaching out too after that, because I was pretty embarrassed by that. But it was so funny because I always tell Francesca Potter Circle, that we have to tell our stories.
Yep.
And, it was the first time that I was there actually telling my story in a very personal way. But I think, again, going back to the fact that Morning Without Childcare encompasses so much. It
Yep.
is, you know, telling the stories about the workers and the sacrifices that they make and the fact that we are essential workers, and telling the stories of the parents, telling the stories of how critical it is for children. I think childcare encompasses so many things that sometimes it's really hard just to tell one story. So, Francesca, so what do you, and I know you're counting yourself as an advocate, but Francesca, I would argue that you've always been an advocate. So what was the thing that was pressing for you to get involved in Morning Without Childcare? Because you're serving as the ACT committee chair, right, for Connecticut for Childcare. And that's the organization. This organization actually evolved out of the Morning Without Childcare rally. And it was a hodgepodge group of people that came together that now formalized itself into Connecticut Childcare for Connecticut. So what was that impetus for you, Francesca?
So just like you said, it is about it to me is being persistent, right?
Mhm.
Um, to make sure that for me, the most important thing, and if we could get out of this, is wages for our teachers, right? Living wages, and affordable childcare for our parents, right? But also for our parents, for our teachers to be able to tell the stories, right? Their voices being heard and the persistence. Because I remember my teacher saying, "Oh, we're doing this again?" I said, "Yes, we're doing it again. And we're doing it again." So it was us with this morning without childcare gave us a chance to stay persistent, right? And not give up.
Yeah.
And that's why we're like, I'm so like, to me, just those the new regulations that passed, like, us having 5 children, right?
Mhm.
When that happened, you know how excited I was, and I called you, and I was like, "Oh my God, and I was like, "Yes, we got it."
Mhm.
It was just one more kid, right? But it took us almost 2 years,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
just to see the results,
Mhm.
right? Of us standing our grounds, staying persistent and consistent in our termination. So it's just I want to be able to give that termination or to other people, right? So they could feel it,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And yeah, I'm really, like, to me, I'm so excited about the morning without childcare. I love, like, I wanted someone else to experience doing it as a captain, right?
Mhm.
No one did, right? But I took on the role, and again, but I'm hoping that next year I could, someone else could do it. Like, I could coach someone else to be able to do it and feel that whole the momentum and the accomplishment.
Yeah.
Mm.
And Mindy, your experience in this, you mentioned that you have 2 children under 5. So your experience in this as a board member for a child development center that I'm pretty sure the finances look as messed up as all of our finances.
Sure do. Sure do.
You're experiencing that, but you're also experiencing this as a parent.
Yeah,
And I know you can't speak for all parents, but definitely, can you talk about what your experience was as a parent,
yeah,
managing, navigating these childcare spaces for yourself,
yeah.
mom?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so when I had my son, I was freelancing. So I was able to actually take some paid leave through Connecticut, paid family leave, which was great. But I had no employer, to sponsor paid leave for me or anything like that. So I really didn't have a total like hard set plan for getting back to work. But a client came knocking when my son was a few months old, and it felt like the right time. So I started looking for childcare. And I realized I was about, what, 12 months too late.
Mm.
And, I
Yeah.
start hearing the stories of people putting themselves on childcare wait lists when they're pregnant. And I had no idea. I had no idea. So I was shocked from the beginning. And when I saw the prices, I was floored. We were lucky to find CCDC. My husband works as nonpartisan staff for the legislature. So he just sort of word of mouth heard about CCDC, which I think is how most people hear about CCDC, just sort of around the LOB and from colleagues and stuff. And so we were lucky to put my son over there in October 2021. So still very much reeling from the pandemic.
Mhm.
Um, uh, and I fell in love with the
Okay,
teachers.
how long did it take you to find childcare?
Um, like a couple months.
Mhm.
And so I hired a like babysitter to come be at home with me and him for a little while. And it was hard being like, I'm trying to get him into childcare, so this is sort of temporary, and it was just like messy.
Mm.
Um, and when I finally got him in, I fell in love with the teachers immediately. His infant teacher, Miss Teresa, is now my daughter's infant teacher. I like to say Miss Teresa helped me become a parent. And it was just truly like an immediate love and sense of relief. Um, when he was in the toddler program, I'd become close with many of the teachers, but just sort of saw how tired they were.
Yeah.
And as honestly, like I felt like as a consumer, it was my responsibility to know what I was participating in with my dollars.
Mhm.
And so I felt like I just started asking questions and realized how tough the finances were, how little the teachers were making, how precarious it was to be a provider, even as a nonprofit. Like, we're not even trying to turn a profit, and it's so fragile, this system. Plus, I knew how much I was paying as a parent. And so I think you really like to see the breadth of what is wrong with the childcare industry right now. You see all of these stakeholders, and everyone is as like fragile footed as the next. No one is stable in this system, and which is just crazy to me. And I think as a parent, what I hear when I talk to other parents is that they want the teachers who love their children to be much more stable than they are. And so, you know what? These costs are pretty outrageous for families, to the point where, at our center, we can't raise tuition really. We can't ask these families to pay more than 25% of their household income. But really, parents know and families know that the system is subsidized by the wages that we are willing to pay childcare workers. And so when I talk to other families, I think we all want better for educators. And so I'm really excited about some of these proposals in the legislature this year, because things like cheaper access to healthcare, care for kids for all providers and educators, these kinds of things that really come at this as a workforce issue will only benefit families too, you know? So that's sort of how I got involved. And then, as one does, once you start asking questions, you get handed responsibility. So then I ended up as the board chair of the center. But it's been really special to be able to have this voice and this privilege to make relationships and build relationships with legislators and with the governor's staff, and be able to advocate for the teachers, because, like I said, like, what better way to give back? I think it's amazing that this year, the Rallies Fall and Teacher Appreciation Week, because like, they deserve the cookies, the brownies, the flowers, the notes, but they deserve fair wages, and they deserve, access to benefits, and they deserve the ability to save for retirement. That's what they deserve. And that's how we can really show our appreciation.
And Mindy and Francesca, we're all looking at childcare budgets. Mindy, our organization is a nonprofit, and Francesca, you're a for-profit, but we're all seeing some of the same things. And I don't think people understand sometimes why it is so expensive for child, yet still teachers are being paid just a little.
Yeah.
And so can you kind of talk from your perspective as managing childcare budget? Because the tension is between parents paying between 25, some 50% of their wages for childcare, and people keep hearing, but teachers aren't being paid.
Yeah.
When we're saying teachers aren't being paid, we're not talking about just like major salaries. We're talking about the fact that teachers are being paid minimum wage. They're being paid less than even some low skill. I think I saw one national report that says the Bureau of Labor Statistics say that dog walkers make more money than childcare workers. And a lot of people have a perception that childcare workers are babysitters, but they also don't understand that we are required to go and get an associate degree or a bachelor's degree in order to do this work, assume student loan debt. Thankfully, in Connecticut now is paying for childcare workers to get their associate degree and bachelor's degree. But prior to that commitment, people were being asked to go out and get a bachelor's degree to come back and to work in an industry where you're being paid less than a dog walker. So can you just kind of shed some light on that friction and that tension between a childcare budget and what we're asking parents to pay?
Yeah.
Yeah, that it is. And I feel like the they don't well, the industry or trying to educate everyone on it is that we have overhead, right? We have the rent, we have the light bill, the gas, and all of those bills, along with inflation, have has gone on, has gone up
Mhm.
tremendously, right? And it has impacted us, right? Minimum wage going up every year
Yeah.
has impacted us, and not being able to budget, just finding out that we have minimum wage going up and with not enough time to budget for it, right? So yeah, and I have parents that have said to me that, or I don't know, just counting my, kind of counting my money or counting my kids, that type of thing, and me explaining to them and kind of being upset that I have to explain it to them, right? Because I shouldn't have to, but explaining to them that, I don't have, there's the leases, there's taxes, even when you run payroll, there's so much taxes that I'm paying to run payroll.
Mhm.
So it's just things like that that I think that that we need to educate and let people know that it's not just you pay me and I'm giving that straight to the teachers,
Yeah.
because it doesn't work that way.
Right.
And or they count how many kids you have and multiply it by, no.
No,
So
no.
we have the same expenses, I feel like.
As a for-profit and a nonprofit. So Mindy, how does your nonprofit budget look?
Yeah, I mean, so I want to say something like 85% of our budget goes to teacher salaries, even
Mhm.
though I want to say most, if not all, of our assistant teachers are at minimum wage, maybe a little bit over.
Yeah.
But it's unacceptable. It is what a dog walk, you can't hire a babysitter for a date night for $17 an hour.
No.
You can't. And that's a little bit more than what our teachers are making. And when I talk to other business owners in Hartford, um, coffee shops and restaurants, they're honestly slapjawed when I tell them what our childcare workforce makes.
Mhm.
And it is unacceptable. Why, such a big part of our budget is going toward these costs. But we still have, like Francesca said, we actually get a little bit of help with some of our costs at CCDC because of our relationship with the legislature. But, still rent, utilities, maintenance,
Mm-hmm.
business insurance.
Mm-hmm.
When I see the business insurance line item every year, I'm like, oh my gosh. Our accountants who we couldn't operate without, like that's a huge expense for us. Um, you know, like Francesca saying, inflation, everyone's feeling it in their personal lives, in their personal budgets. We're feeling it as a nonprofit and a small business too.
Mm-hmm.
At CCDC, I don't think we've raised our tuition in, I know, at least 5 years. It might be more like 10 years. So we are truly trying to keep costs down for families because we have about, I want to say like 30% of our families fall below the SMI,
Mm-hmm.
a state medium income level. So we are really trying to keep things affordable for our neighborhood. The math doesn't math. It just,
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't understand. And it's you mentioned that 85% of your budget is wages. And that is the crux of the childcare issue. Because we are required by law to maintain a certain number of staff, right?
yeah.
And in our program, and Francesca, you alluded to this a little bit earlier, we are required to maintain ratios and
Mm-hmm.
group size. So if you're running an infant toddler program, minimally, you want to have two teachers in the room with 8 children, and you're maxed out at 8 children for infants. And the regulation just changed to allow us to add 10 children in a toddler classroom, which allows you to add two additional tuition, set a tuition into your toddler
Without
budget.
at the same time raising salary. Yeah, exactly.
And so you have two teachers as well with now a group size of 10. So imagine, they were talking about the public school per child expenditure. And in the public schools where you have one teacher to 18 children, the per child expenditure, I think are between 17,000 and maybe like 35,000, depending on how wealthy and affluent your community is.
Mhm.
Well, for an infant toddler per expenditure, you are looking at 20 to maybe $30,000. That's close to the true cost of care, but we can't charge parents 20,000. And then we have to have two teachers, whereas a public school classroom have one teacher for 18 to 20 children. We have to have two teachers for an infant classroom, two teachers for a toddler classroom with a max of 8 to 10 children. And then preschool, you get a little bit more bang for your buck because it's one per 10. And now they've increased it for school age to 1 to 15.
15.
So it's a very labor intensive operation. And as Francesca said, as the minimum wage goes up every year, your cost is going up significantly every year. And you have the minimum wage going up at the cost of inflation and everything else going up at the cost of inflation, but you cannot ask parents to do a 5 or 10% increase in their child cost every year. So that really is the crux of the problem. And I think having like Morning Without Childcare rallies basically bring these things to the forefront and give us opportunity to explain a little bit more what the challenge and the problem is. So,
I just wanted to say on that, like, I think the point you're making is the point that needs to be, that needs to resonate across all audiences because economists call the childcare sector a market failure, right? Like the market cannot solve for childcare demands. And when you use those numbers of public education, the reason they can be so high is because families don't pay those costs.
Mm.
We don't pay for our kid to go to kindergarten. If you ask them when should the cost of kindergarten be $20,000 a year, they would laugh at you. And I feel like that's where we need to get to with childcare and, for the 0 to 5 age group where, those costs, like you said, like I don't know that I necessarily as a parent want the ratios to keep increasing, instead of investing in the wages of those workers so that the math can work out.
Mhm.
As a parent, I like the attention my little 3 or 4 month old got when she started in childcare. And so I hear, yeah, it's exactly, the ratios are tough, but, policymakers have a choice when they're deciding how to solve for this. And it doesn't have to be just adding children to the ratios.
and I agree. And what that change, or even the added investment has allowed us to do at Hope Child Development Center is to add an additional teacher in our toddler classroom. We've always had additional teachers in our infant classroom, but it allowed us to add additional teachers because of that increased investment with
Yeah.
our funding. So, we've talked a lot, delved into some of the details, and we're getting close to being wrapped up. So we talked in past shows about the investments that the state's making. So if you had to say what investments you would like to see come out of this legislature, we currently have a proposal, a priority bill from the Senate. We have a priority bill from the House, and we have a priority bill proposed by the governor. And the Appropriations Committee just released their budget, and they did in fact actually have $300 million in their budget for childcare. So everybody at the legislature is signaling that they want to make greater investments in childcare. What do you, Mindy and Francesca, if you could
Mhm.
wave your magic wand as you do every day in your budgets to make it work, what would you want to see as an outcome in this legislative session?
For me, it would be wages for teachers.
Mm.
Some type of and I think we filled out something where we asked how much we would need to subsidize wages, some type of investment where we will be relieved of that high payroll. That 85%, my biggest bill is payroll, and then there's the lease. So that my biggest bill would be alleviated. And my teachers would still get paid enough money, livable wages, even, above of what they deserve. So I'm the biggest advocate for wages because I think once the teachers are being paid enough, and everything else is going to fall in line because they're going to do what you want them to do. They're going to comply with anything that the OEC is having us do for our teachers to be in compliance. They're going to be more willing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The atmosphere is
Yeah.
going to change.
Yeah. And what about you, Mindy?
I agree with Francesca. I think the whole culture, the whole feeling changes when educators feel the respect coming, to them that they deserve. I think if legislators I'm so grateful that there are proposals coming out of the Senate, the House, the governor's office, echoed by the Appropriations Committee. I think if lawmakers can hear all the testimony we've heard this session, stories of early childhood educators looking for second jobs with overnight shifts, rationing gas money to think about, is it worth getting to work?
Mhm.
Walking around with toothaches and untreated medical issues because they can't afford their own health care. I think if you could listen to all this and not think this system needs major transformation, it would be an embarrassment. And I just don't think we can claim to value families and children without major transformation. And I think that's what Childcare for Connecticut, advocates for really well is we can't just piecemeal keep trying to band-aid this system. It needs major transformation. I want better wages for educators. I want cheaper healthcare or free healthcare for educators. I want there to be equal focus on infant toddlers and preschool. I fear sort of the decimation of some of these centers if there's only a focus on preschool. I really want all of us, legislators and everyone else, to understand that childcare is public infrastructure. As the great Alex Schiavone would say if she were here, childcare is a public good. And that's what I would love out of this session, is for that to just be agreed upon and echoed.
Mm-hmm.
So in the last few minutes that we have, I want you to share with folks your childcare Morning Without Childcare rally information. Francesca, could you just share with the audience what's happening in Stamford and where they can go to get some additional information?
Yeah. So you could go to, I don't have the link, but if you go to for Connecticut, for Childcare for Connecticut, there's a link that you could sign up for the rallies, right? There's different cities and you could sign up for the rallies. The Stamford rally is in front of the government center, 8:30 to 10, and then from 10 to like 12 upstairs in the lounge at the government center, we'll have it's a We Are Better Together meet and greet. I'm calling it an after party. We have to rename it. So it's a meet and greet and kind of appreciation, kind of brunch that we're having for parents, educate anybody that came out to support.
Mhm.
So that's us.
All right. And Mindy, your event, your rally?
Yeah. We'll be in Hartford. We'll be at the Capitol. 5:30 to 6:30. We have some great guest speakers. We have Representative Corey Paris and Senator Cece Marr, who are the co-chairs of the Children's Committee. I believe Commissioner Beth Bai will be there speaking, who I should just say we are so lucky to have in Connecticut. And we will have actually, Latrice Gremley, our executive director over at Capital Child Development Center, will be speaking and sharing the provider perspective. We'll have some activities for kids, so we're encouraging you to bring the whole family. Come let your little ones show their appreciation for their teachers.
And your event is happening, remind me again?
On
May
this,
7th.
oh yeah, May 7th,
No, in the afternoon?
5:30 to 6:30.
5:30 to 6:30. And Alex Schiavone, you mentioned, was supposed to be our other guest here. And so I am just going to do some work for New Haven. So New Haven event is actually occurring from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. It's on the green where we always have our event. And again, you can sign up at childcareforct.org/MWCC, Morning Without Childcare. So folks can go and there are 15 rallies that are going
Yeah, across the state.
That is
Exciting.
exciting. So you guys are all acting as rally chairs for your communities. So we are so thrilled and so proud of the work that you guys are doing. I'm especially proud of what Morning Without Childcare has become. And again, this is an opportunity for us to highlight the challenges that are actually occurring across the state. So in our last maybe like 5 or 10 minutes, if you had to give a wrap up of what you want the audience to walk away with, and I'm going to start with you, Mindy, what would you want the audience to have as a takeaway from this conversation and the Morning Without Childcare rally?
Yeah. I mean, I think, like I said earlier, if you ask families whether they should have to pay $20,000 a year for kindergarten, it would sound ridiculous. And that's because we've collectively decided that starting at age 5, education is public and free. And those teachers get compensated accordingly. I mean, look, they can always make more, and I will always advocate for more. But they get compensated, accordingly and with benefits and everything. So why did we draw the line there? Science shows that brain development in the first 3 years of life is extremely critical. And so I hope that the Morning Without Childcare rallies, Childcare for CT, all of our collective stories, the vulnerability we share when we say our stories out loud, helps move the needle so that one day it sounds as ridiculous to suggest that families should pay $20,000 a year for infant or toddler or preschool care.
And, thinking about it, we don't even have that expectation for higher ed.
Right.
We create a mechanism for folks who are going to be paying 20, 30,000 a year to get subsidized and supported, but there's nothing really in place on a system-wide level to help parents. So I think that's so important, Mindy, for you to say that.
I always say, if you knew my son would be the next NCAA championship basketball player at UConn, could we get subsidized the way that higher ed gets subsidized, right? These systems are, some of the education systems get much more help than childcare systems, and we are definitely essential infrastructure.
And of course, there's always the history behind that and historical legislation and policies rooted in racial animus that has landed us here, and want to do a deep dive in that conversation. So we know why we're here, but I guess, how do we move forward? Francesca.
So I wanted to say to Mindy, because I was just thinking about it, say thank you for your perspective as a parent. I never thought about that a parent would feel that you don't want to add to the ratios in order to pay the teachers, which makes so much sense. Like I saw it in a different light right now, which makes sense because you like that one-on-one and more what is it? Just individualized kind
Mhm.
of care for your child. So I'm gonna take that one, and it really it makes sense. It does.
But is also to say that parents want educators to feel so supported. And I think that would
Yeah.
be just one other quick takeaway is
Mhm.
like have so much grace and patience and curiosity when it comes to your child care center if you're a parent.
Yes.
Really think about what
I
they
tell my
need.
parents that all the time. Give
Yes,
us grace. We're
yes,
human just like you.
yes.
And think that we're taking care of two teachers are taking care of 8 kids. They are totally different, each one of them.
I can
So,
do it.
you have one at home. My teachers say I'm a mother to, 8 kids kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, um, one thing that I want for these morning without childcares to like come across is that we are stronger when we stand together, right? And we are better together. I keep saying that, like we are better together. And just recently, I saw the movie of I don't know if you saw it about founders this weekend. About McDonald's, the founder is on Netflix, but his thing was that persistency.
Yeah.
And like, so then I took that and it was a little bit of it, but now I could see the persistency of our morning without childcare, right? That we kept coming and then we multiplied in each year we came back, there were more rallies. And each year that we came back, we got something, right? Out of it. Like you said, they put in 1 million and then we got more and then this year, none of a lot of our bills are still alive, and we're towards the end of the legislative season. So just to see that transformation because we were better together,
Yeah.
because we kept at it. So yeah, so that's what I want to convey to like when I do the morning without childcare is that even if we have to come back next year, you know, we are progressing.
And we are going to come back every year because,
Yes.
again, right now, because we're in crisis, we're kind of asking for things to kind of stem the crisis.
Mhm.
But ultimately, what we want is a system that is really thoughtful about how do we support families, and more importantly, children and brain development at the earliest stage of development. Before we go, can you just do for like 1 minute, give folks information about how they can connect with your center?
Okay. So I'm Francesca Velasquez, and you could I have a website. It's called Play to Learn
Mhm.
childcare.net. My email is there. My phone number is everywhere. 203-832-3519. Text me. I'm here and I'm always open to share and talk to any providers or parents.
All right. And Mindy?
Yeah, Capital Child Development Center in Frog Hollow, right across from the LOB and the Capitol. We're at capitalchild.org. You can find out more about our programs. We have infant, toddler, and preschool.
Well, ladies, as always, I love, 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 love meeting and talk. Well, meeting with you in person a little bit, Mindy, but we connect over email. And Francesca, as always, love to hear your voice, love to see the work that you're doing. And we are so grateful to be in Connecticut because Connecticut really is a state that really is being responsive to the needs of childcare, the early care system, and to the teachers and the families and to the children. And we are blessed indeed to have legislators who are hearing us and responding and actually putting money where their mouth is.
Mm.
So for us, again, we are blessed to be in Connecticut. And with that, I just want to say thank you so very much to our guest. And I'm pretty sure we'll have you on here definitely next year when we do the next year of Morning Without Childcare, because Francesca, we're coming back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coming back. We are going to be as persistent in asking for what we need for our children. And I think in general, people just need to understand that that's how the needle is moved. We
Mhm.
have to keep being persistent.
We can't give up. We won't give up.
And we won't give up. And of course, it's wonderful to have people who not just see the need and respond to it, but to respond in a way where you're putting your work and your labor towards making things great.
Mhm.
We started as childcare owners, but we became advocates. You started as
Yeah.
a parent, but you became an advocate. So that is just
Yeah, true.
yes. All right, ladies, thank you so very much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
You are listening to Inside Voices on WNHHLP